Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Skorka. I'm president of Opera America, and welcome to the National Opera Center for our program Creators in Concert this evening with the wonderful composer and colleague Jake Heggie. Creators in Concert is a series that we offer here at the Opera Center for you in person as well as for our audience via live stream. And I do want to welcome all of our live stream attenders. We love having your emails and your questions through the live stream. The program that we have tonight explores some of the work of the wonderful composer Jake Heggie, and I will follow the musical excerpts by asking him a few questions just to understand where he is in his creative work today. The program, though, is an extension of Opera America's core commitment to supporting the creation and production of new American opera. Over the last 30 years, we have awarded more than $13 million to composers and opera companies in support of new work. Just this last couple of weeks, we awarded grants through our Female Composers Opera Program for commissioning grants. We're doing discovery grants for female composers next week. In total this year, we will grant over $750,000 to opera companies for the creation and production of new work and audience development activities associated with productions of American repertoire. We have our New Works Forum in the wintertime, which many of you attended, and our annual conference in May in Montreal will feature a program of excerpts of new American works. All of this to continue developing the operatic art form in an American vernacular. This evening, though, we're going to focus on just one composer, and he is among the most performed composers today. Over lunch, we were chatting, and his opera Dead Man Walking has had 50, perhaps over 50 productions already in the United States, with more to come. Jake is not only a prolific composer, he is brilliant at putting together co-production collaboratives to make sure that his work moves around the country, but he's also one of the most generous colleagues anyone could know. He is a wonderful pianist, accompanist to great singers, and his talent is shared in panels, recitals, public presentations around the country. So without further ado, please welcome our special guest, Jake Heggie.
Thank you very much. What a pleasure it is to be here. And you heard how amazing Opera America is. Just what a privilege to be part of it. And I've been lucky enough to be on the board of Opera America for the past few years and to be able to represent composers and artists and give input in that regards. It's wonderful that there's such interest in every perspective at Opera America, from administrative, audience, creative, all different levels, and it's a wonderful organization. I'm very proud, and that we're in Mark Skorka Hall is also very special. This man has devoted the last 26 years of his life to this, and this was his dream. And so to be here performing a concert, I was supposed to be here for the opening of it a year ago, and I got terribly sick, so I couldn't come. So tonight is dedicated to you, Mark, and I thank you very much. I still can't believe I'm lucky enough to have a life in opera and to get to write this every day and work on amazing projects with great singers and great colleagues is just a dream come true. And it's what keeps me going to want to show up every day to tell these stories and share all of this that we experience together in this magical art form. But one of the things I love the most about it are ensembles. And so I wanted tonight, for the music part of the program, to be duets and ensembles. It's something, whenever I take on a project, one of the first things I think is, where are the moments, the ensembles that build for an emotional transition and a big statement. And I think about that in songs as well. I write songs as well as opera. So tonight we're having excerpts from a few of my operas, as well as 2 song cycles that feature duets. And I'm so lucky to have such great singer friends. And tonight I have my great friends, Talise Trevine, soprano, who I've written for and am writing now a new role with Jean Shear, who's in the audience tonight. She was in the opera Moby Dick as Pip, the cabin boy, and she'll be very happy to know that in It's a Wonderful Life, she gets to wear a dress. And but she might have to fly. Again, great friend and colleague. Elise Quagliata, who has sung the role of Sister Helen Préjean in my opera Dead Man Walking many times. A great friend and colleague, and we did The Deepest Desire together a few times, and great friend. Young artist Matthew Lattanzi. Oh my God, I did it again. Joseph Lattanzi. I keep calling him Matthew. It's the weirdest thing. And how long have I known you? Ages. I did it again. Anyway, Joseph Lattanzi, who I first knew as a young artist and is now out building a career. Wonderful young baritone. And he sang in the workshop of my most recent opera, Great Scott, when it was done, and the workshop happened in Cincinnati. And the amazing Stephen Costello, who I first heard his voice, his magical voice at the Met in Lucia when we were trying to think of who would be Ishmael in Moby Dick. And I heard this voice when I was sitting at the Met, and I went, that's it, that's the voice. And we've been great friends ever since, and love him with all my heart. Love all of you guys. And so they changed their schedules and came in today to be here for this program, and I'm very grateful for them. And they might ask questions, but you can also ask them questions too at the end. And so let's get going. We're going to start with a scene from Act 2 of Dead Man Walking, my first opera. And both Talise and Elise have sung these roles of Sister Rose and Sister Helen. And it's in Act 2, it's been, Sister Helen has been making trips to Angola to be the spiritual advisor to Joseph Desrochers, who's on death row, convicted of killing 2 people and raping a woman. And he's on death row. He keeps proclaiming his innocence, and she is trying to get him to acknowledge his guilt and to accept responsibility, and she's feeling very, very, very conflicted. She can't sleep, and it's late one night, and she cries out from a nightmare that she's had, and her friend, Sister Rose, who works with her at Hope House, comes to help her. And so please welcome beautiful Elise Quagliata and Talise Trevine.
Dreams able to begin you with this. I give my word, and he has nobody else. He's only one man, and we tend many. Sister, all alone in his cell, waiting for August 4th. I have told him that God loves him and forgives him, but it is of no consolation to him. And you, what about me? Have you forgiven him? What a question! Of course I have! How can you even ask that? God's love and
Talise is doing yeoman service tonight, singing a lot because she's an angel and because she will be the angel in It's a Wonderful Day. Next up is an excerpt, a short duet from the second act of Moby Dick. And they're like, who's next? It's all right. And what's exciting about this is a little reunion. These two created these roles, Stephen and Talise, when we did the premiere in Dallas, and then they did it together in San Francisco, and they're on the DVD together. So it's like a family reunion.
You can buy in the lobby for $20.
But this is from Act 2, and it's below deck. Queequeg has announced that he's dying, and his friend Greenhorn is with him, and out of the shadows emerges Pip, the cabin boy, who has gone a little mad, and together they sing a mournful lament over Queequeg. See why I like to do this. You get voices like this and friends like this, and it's just so magical. There's nothing like it, is there?
No.
No. The next excerpt is from an opera I wrote also with Jean Shear. Jean wrote the libretto for Moby Dick and also for 3 Decembers, and we're doing It's a Wonderful Life together. This is an excerpt from 3 Decembers, and in this moment, sister and brother, Charlie and Bee, are trying to remember a father that they barely knew. He died when they were both very, very young, and they're struggling hard to find common memories of him. And they're on the Golden Gate Bridge and sharing a moment together, looking over the city of San Francisco. the next two songs are duets from a cycle called Here and Gone that I wrote in 2005 on a commission from the Ravinia Festival. And it's based on the relationship between two men over years. There's a homecoming, one has died, they have to reflect on what they missed by not being together, and then a reunion in a different sphere. The poetry is by Vachel Lindsay and A.E. Hausman, and we have, there are 2 solos and 3 duets that make up this cycle. And we're going to start in the middle, and this is a song called the Factory Window Song. And this is recalling a very jovial time together. And I told them the story that when I was writing this piece, I was under a lot of pressure, and I did not know how I was going to write this piece, and I was terrified. And so one day, I sat at the piano and I played the opening chords, and you'll hear exactly how I solved my problem.
Factory windows are always broken. Somebody's always throwing bricks. Somebody's always eating cinders. They ugly Yahoo, Yahoo tricks. Factory windows are always broken. Somebody's always throwing bricks. Somebody's always eating cinders. Something's rotten, I think, in Denmark. And the factory window.
That's a scary one, huh? And this next duet is on a poem by A.E. Hausman, The Half Moon Westers Low. they learned all this just for this program, too. So poor Stephen just came from Dallas doing Manon, and Joseph just came from Arizona doing Don Giovanni. So, you know, it was a lot to fit in. And you were tired. And we're on daylight savings time. Did that hit all of you as hard as it hit me? Wow. Time travel, here we come. So this last set of duets is from a cycle I wrote also for Ravinia. This is from 2007. And I asked several poet friends to contribute things about the ever-evolving, changing relationship between mother and daughter. Any women out here know about that relationship? How it moves from you know, one is more of the parent to another one maybe becoming more of the parent, and rejecting one, sometimes embracing one, and how that relationship changes through life. These two duets are from the end of the cycle, and in this one, the daughter suddenly looks in the mirror one day and sees her mother looking back. And this text is by Armistead Maupin.
I saw my mother in the mirror last night, as plain as the nose on my face. She'd been lurking inside me all along, smirking at my disgrace.
This last one is actually based on one of my own texts. I don't usually set my own texts, but this one I actually wrote as a teenager when I was living in Paris, and it's one of those things that it suddenly had a place when I was writing this song, and it made sense. So this is the last song of the cycle called Facing Forward, and this is the last of our musical presentations tonight, and then we'll move on to the interview with Mark. For those of you here in the room, after we finish the interview and the Q&A, don't leave. There will be a sign-off, but then there's going to be a special encore just for you, okay?
And I must say that although we've had some splendid singers perform in this hall, this is a high point in terms of a quartet. Thank you so much.
In my career as well. You guys, beautiful.
Thanks so much. So, Jake, the last time we sat down and had a conversation like this, I looked at my notes. It was before Moby Dick and before the Opera Center. So
Yes.
we were younger, but not that much.
Was it 4 years ago?
I think it's 4 years ago. And we upstairs in the 18th floor in our temporary
Yes,
space.
a couple of them were
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. You have, since then, just enjoyed increasing success as among the most performed American composers. Indeed, we spoke over lunch about the fact that it is 50 productions, 50 productions of Dead Man Walking and counting, and it's just so, so exciting.
Miracle.
Did you
It's all a miracle.
Did you ever think you would be at the threshold of being an eminence grise in the field of American opera?
No, and no one ever asked me that question either. No, I could never have imagined that my life would be like this. I mean, there was a period in my late 20s where I didn't think I'd have a life in music at all. I developed a focal dystonia and couldn't play the piano for about a period of 5 years and stopped writing music and moved to San Francisco and got a job in the PR marketing department at the San Francisco Opera as the writer for the company in 1994, and got my hand back and started to meet amazing singers, and my job was to write about everything that was happening in the opera house. It was the most amazing apprenticeship you could imagine for someone who was going to write operas. But I didn't think I was going to write operas. I was just having a great time, and then I started writing songs again for these great singers, and lucky for me, Frederica von Stade, Renee Fleming, Bryn Terfel, Sylvia McNair, they all loved to tell their friends about stuff. So suddenly, people were coming to the press office not to look at their press kit or release, but to ask if I had a song for them. It was amazing. And then I was commissioned to write Dead Man Walking. So no, I could never have imagined any of this. It's all an enormous surprise, and I'm grateful every day. And I just keep working really, really hard to be grateful and to give what I can.
And I think that gratitude shows in your relationship with everybody around you. So, it's been of course, Dead Man Walking and 3 Decembers, Moby Dick, Great Scott, you're working on It's a Wonderful Life. These are very different pieces. So do you, at this point in your career, continue to experiment, or have you found a theme or a groove, subject matter, that really is what you want to do?
I get asked that question a lot, and there are certainly, definitely themes that appear in my operas. There's a sense of social inequity or injustice going on. Somehow people are at different levels or considered at different levels for some reason. There's a sense of spiritual crisis. There's a sense of questioning your place in the middle of things. And I find family themes come through a lot, parents and children in particular. But there isn't one kind of thing that I look for. I just know when a story or an idea gives me this rush of musical energy, like musical adrenaline, like my hair stands up on end, and you feel those prickles all over. I know there's music there, and I know that's project's right for me, and it's not just something I want to do, it's something that I must do. It also, it's a little bit because I feel that, and also because the project terrifies me somehow. I don't do a project that doesn't scare me in some way, because that's how I'm going to push myself into new territory. Because I know that I can get there, but I have no idea how I'm going to get there.
What do you mean by new territory?
I think forcing myself I don't want to just repeat myself as a composer. I want to keep growing. And so every piece demands a different musical sphere or language. And one of the goals when I write an opera is to try to find a musical universe in which that piece resides. There's an overall color to the language that, like Moby Dick sounds very different from Dead Man Walking, sounds very different from Great Scott.
We could hear that tonight in the Moby Dick, Dead Man Walking excerpt. They're just very different.
And 3 December sounds very different from those. I mean, I'm still the same composer in all of them, but it's trying to find a musical world in which those characters live so that then they can emerge distinctly and yet still part of that sphere. And that's a huge challenge. And it forces me to explore new sound palettes and new ideas with instrumentation, orchestration, how I'm going to use the voices, how I'm going to use characters, and also working with great collaborators like with Gene. Gene challenges me, I think I challenge him, and we make each other's work better. And it is working with like great singers who are there for the work, you know, because they believe in the work, not because it's not anyone who's involved in the project. If there's someone who's only there for their own self-benefit or aggrandizement, the project is going to fall apart because it's all about who you work with in any business. But and basically when you're creating an opera, you're moving into a house with all these people for a long time. And if you've ever had a bad roommate situation, you know what it can be like writing an opera with the wrong people. It's really tough. And so everyone has to be there to make the story and the work the best that it can be.
Beyond your finding a new sound world, a new musical world for each of your operas, has your compositional style evolved over the more than 15 years now that you've been writing operas, the 20 years you've been composing? Have you seen an evolution you can describe in your music?
I hope there's been an evolution. I feel it. I feel there's been a change over the years. But people, you know, students will analyze my work for papers or stuff, and they'll talk to me about, you know, harmonic and rhythmic analysis of these things. I have, you know, that's for you to do. I have no interest in that at all. I write from my gut and from what I feel is the right musical expression of that. And that's why going to my studio is so much fun, because it's playtime. Everything is possible. And there are no bad ideas. There's just ideas that are better than others. And I write everything by hand. I still write everything by hand and send to a copyist, and that's every step of the way, including orchestration. And part of that is because I feel like I need permission, give myself permission to make a mess. And from the mess, I will discover things that I might not have discovered otherwise. But I don't analyze the work, and I don't work to work think, well, now I have to do this because, you know, I've already done that. If it serves the piece, I will use my language that may sound familiar from something else. But the goal is always to find a new musical world that serves that story. So I'm not as aware of it as maybe other people, but my close friends say they definitely hear a difference. I mean, I think one of the big shifts was, first of all, Dead Man Walking, because I'd never done anything like that. But then the musical world of Moby Dick was completely different from me. And that's why, you know, pieces like that can be really hard to write, because your whole musical axis is shifting. And it's very exciting, but it's also a little terrifying because I have no idea where it's going to lead me. And then the axis had to shift again for Great Scott, and it's shifting again for It's a Wonderful Life. And then there's a new opera that we're writing that we've just done based on 3 Holocaust one-acts that we created for a company in Seattle called Music of Remembrance. It's called Out of Darkness. And it's a real chamber opera. There's 5 singers and 6 instruments. And we did this mashup to create a new opera and that was combining 3 different pieces with different sound worlds into one piece that feels unified for these sort of ghost stories that we tell. So it's just a matter of giving, and I was talking to the singers before, I'm very lucky that I have a brain that doesn't hold on to stuff very long. So when I finish a piece, it really goes away. I mean, if you asked me to sit down and play something from Moby Dick right now, I'd say, give me the score, and I can play something from Moby Dick. But to sit there and play it, I can't, because my brain has already moved on and it's involved in this other project.
Do you compose at the piano?
I compose near the piano. I try to get my ideas away from the piano, and I always tell young composers that is a very important thing to do. Whatever your instrument is, make sure you get ideas away from it. You can work them out at the piano. I work everything out at the piano and I listen to it. But I try to have the idea in my head very clearly before. I sing into my phone. Most of my ideas happen while I'm walking my dog up and down hills in San Francisco. And then I show up to the studio to work them out or to refine them.
I was chatting with a composer in Houston on Saturday, and he is a pianist who composes it, but if he composes at the piano, he composes piano music.
Oh.
So he needs to not compose at the piano in order to write other music than piano music.
I've always thought orchestrally as a pianist. Pianists generally do not like playing my reductions and stuff because I have very large hands, and I think very orchestrally, and and I can do it with no problem. But I do play things at the piano and work them out at the piano. But I think orchestrally all the time. And I think vocally all the time, too. I always have. I mean, singers apparently like to sing my music. So, you know. It's something that's always sort of been innate to me, is to think first and foremost of the voice.
How do you relate differently, if at all differently, to librettists now that you have so many operas under your belt? Are you, Gene, is he more demanding? Do you know more what you want? Are you like Verdi with his correspondence to Ghislanzoni filling a 1,000-volume book? Are you more easygoing with the text?
Well, no, now that Gene and I have done so many pieces together, we have a real back and forth in rhythm. And what's wonderful about having a great partner like that is you don't have to explain things, and you don't have to say, I love you, but I mean, this is probably not the right, I just say it, I don't like this doesn't work, and he says the same thing, I think we can do better, or one time, my favorite was, I played this thing for me, he goes, it sounds a little facile, and I went, just like, and it wasn't an insult, he was responding, and I need to take that response very seriously, because if he says that, it's the truth, he tells me the truth. And you need people like that, collaborators. But he also, he understands that once we have a structure and an architecture for the libretto, and I feel inspired by his words and what he's given me, because a libretto a first draft isn't even ready until it inspires music, that I'm going to start writing music, and the music may take me in a totally different direction. And we may have to revisit almost everything we've done. Recreate characters, add different events, change lines, because ultimately the music has to lead. And I have to be a primary dramatist in that. That's what makes it an opera. And Gene has been a dream to work with, like Terrence McNally has been a dream to work with too over the years. As I say, Terrence McNally has had such an influence on me. My first opera was with him. The second opera, which was with a different librettist, was his idea. 3 Decembers was based on a Terrence McNally script. Moby Dick was Terrence's idea, even though Gene wrote the libretto. Great Scott was Terrence's idea. He wrote the libretto. So I'm now venturing into new territory without Terrence's guidance, so we'll see what happens.
Now we also have Leonard Foley in the audience
Where
tonight.
is he? Hi,
There he
Leonard.
is. A wonderful
see you
stage
there.
director across
Yes.
so many media, and opera included.
And a librettist himself.
How does the stage director influence the work? When does the stage director come into your work?
Very early on. Earlier on, I have to have 4 people in place when I start a project. Obviously, the librettist, conductor, and director. It's a quartet of people that are very involved right from the beginning. And, but the director is very involved right from the start because it's about dramaturgy and character development and asking the right questions. And that's why I love working with Lenny, is he just asks questions, and he doesn't say, what if this happened? He says, why is that happening? Or where did this character go? Or why are they saying that? If it's a question to him. If it's a question to him, it's going to be a question to someone else. And so working with Lenny right from the start of a piece is just a dream.
So it is a fluid creative process until what point?
Oh my gosh, it's a fluid creative process. Basically until we start rehearsals, and then it continues. We get to a first draft of a piano vocal score. We usually have a workshop, make changes, and then we give that to the singers after the changes are made, and we go into rehearsal, and then during rehearsals we make changes, right? You make changes all the way through, and then opening night is when the opera is shot out of a cannon at the audience, because we don't get previews, and it's all abstract, it's what we've imagined, and the audience is the final character, and they finally arrive on opening night, and that's when you really know where the piece is and what it is. So it's fluid even then, because then we have to be open to making changes based on what works and what doesn't work. Something that we're absolutely in love with may feel 20 minutes long to the audience, and it needs to go by in a flash. So we learn from the audience, and then we revisit, and hopefully until we get it right. And luckily, because we've been lucky enough to have extra performances and productions, we can learn over a period of time, because that's really what it takes.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because when you see these national, international co-production collaborations among companies, frequently Jake is the source for putting those together. They don't happen on their own. Over the last 15 years, we've seen a continued acceleration in the rate of creation of new opera.
That's amazing.
And you are part of an explosion in American opera, and the success of your works is accelerating that explosion. Is it thus easier to get your work produced today because people are so much more receptive to new work, or is it more difficult?
Well, it hasn't been a problem for Dead Man Walking or Moby Dick or 3 Decembers so far, which is sort of miraculous. And I think they arrived really on the beginning edge of this new thing with new operas happening. when I started at the San Francisco Opera, it was very rare for a major company to commission a work, or a mid-level company, with the exception of Houston Grand Opera and a couple of others who did new works regularly. Since then, in the past 10 years?
Even fewer.
Even
but,
fewer,
yeah.
less than 10 years. There are, I mean, all companies they're looking for new theater composers. They want ownership of discovering something and creating something, and they want to be part of it. And so it has gotten actually more difficult to find partners for a project that I'm involved with, for example, because people want ownership of their own project. So it's a really interesting shift. But it's a nice problem to have, that so many companies want to do new work, that there's fewer people to do co-productions with. But it means you just have to be more inventive and creative. I mean, I really have to think about what piece is going to be attractive to a board of directors, to an audience, to an opera company, to a group of singers. Because singers, if you get singers who want to champion your work and want to do it, that's a key part of it too, as well as conductors, directors, general directors. It's finding champions and making those connections. I always tell young composers, every job I've gotten is because I knew someone. It's because of someone I knew or someone who knew someone, that way. And you have to show up, you have to be a good colleague and make friends in this business and participate. That's why being a board member has been so gratifying to me, and also I feel a very important contribution in terms of encouraging participation by singers, designers, composers, librettists, etc.
When you did Dead Man Walking, the act of doing a new American opera for a major theater was experimental.
Yeah.
The fact that you chose such a potent subject matter was experimental. Today there is this new experimental extension of the opera form. And how do you respond to it as you see the next generation, forgive me, of composers just experimenting?
Does it show?
Experimenting beyond what you first understood as the definition of opera when you began.
Oh, I think there's always been questions about what opera is, historically, always. What's exciting now is that so many companies are lively and eagerly and actively engaging in that exploration. I mean, if you look through the entire 20th century, where opera started with, premieres by Puccini, and then in the middle with premieres by, Schoenberg and Stockhausen, and, when academia really took over the art form, and Carlisle Floyd, bless his heart, really stuck. He told me I was very lonely for a long time. He stuck to a lyrical version of that. And now it's really come out a different end where lyricism has been embraced, but now even more experimentation is happening. I think it's always been an art form in flux. I mean, the way we do opera today is very different from the way it was done 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And it will be very different in 50 years or 100 years from now, but that's the beauty of the art form, is that it is always seeking a new venue and new ways of expression. That's why great productions of great classics, we put them in new clothes or to explore different levels of meaning in those great masterpieces. And we do the same with new works. And what's wonderful is that there are many different types of composers being asked to write. So jazz composers, film composers, theater composers, jazz, all kinds of people are writing operas, very experimental stuff. And audiences' ears are being tested and bended, and they get to decide ultimately what they embrace. And it's surprising sometimes what an audience will embrace. You don't give them credit for being willing to move that far, but they do. And so I think it's a really exciting time, and I think it bodes well for the future of the art form. I think it's also a big statement that so many singers and companies are excited about the possibilities in opera, that they've been creating smaller grassroots companies to do new work on a smaller scale and giving wonderful opportunities to singers that they might not have had.
You've also been a trailblazer, not only as a composer, but your willingness to be present in a community that's doing your work, to do panels and public discussions and interviews. You have shown the way for many other composers of how to prepare the audience, how to enable the audience to own the creative process before opening night. And I think you've really set the path for us.
Well, thank you, but I think that's just a very important part of it. Most people, for many years, were very scared of coming to a new opera. They thought, I remember one of the questions at the press conference for Moby Dick. This board member raised her hand and she goes, "Am I gonna like it?" And I said, no, you're going to love it. And you know, being connected with people, you know what a difference it makes when you go to a show and you know someone on the stage, or you feel connected somehow to something that's going on. And it's the same for any audience in the opera world too. If you feel connected somehow, you're more open to the expression. And so part of what I can do is not only give insight into my process in creating that, but also connect people to the project, and connect singers to the project, and connect the, you know, it is a community event, a new opera. Mm-hmm. It's part of a community. Part of the reason we do opera is because of the community. It's a very different experience sitting in an opera house listening to a great performance when you're the only one in the opera house versus having it full with 3,000 people that you're sharing it with. It's like being, if you can imagine being at a sports event where there's an amazing game happening and you're the only person in the stadium. Whoa, whoa, you know? I mean, it's just, the difference is the community. That's what it's about. And so being part of that and connecting with it is very important. And most people don't, it isn't on TV, it isn't on the radio, it isn't in schools. So we have a responsibility as artists, I think, to get out there and connect with people and bring them in. I think people who love it, grandparents need to bring their grandchildren, parents need to bring their children, friends need to bring friends. And I think that's how it grows and sustains and survives and thrives. And
well, again, you are a model for doing that. This evening's program...
I'm a model.
That's the soundbite.
I'm so excited.
That's the soundbite. Jake Heggie is a model. This evening's program centered on ensembles. Uh-huh. Why did you choose that as the focus?
Oh, because I've never done a program like that, and I love, I get so excited when I hear people singing together. I think it's what, you know, I grew up in school and we always sang together. And it's something that I love. And I know singers love to do solos, but when a real duet or a real ensemble blossoms, there's something incredibly gratifying about that. And when I'm writing, you know, Jean, I know you feel this too, and Lenny, when we feel something happening and something's building emotionally and more voices start singing, I mean, that's what makes opera special. It's not just stand there and sing a solo moment. It's about these moments of crossover and something blossoms and builds that is shared between numerous people. I just find it so inspiring and exciting. And so I'd never done that here, and I've never done that on a program. So I was lucky enough that they were all willing to come and do that and learn some music. And
you don't shy away from making the audience ache.
Well, I don't shy away from it myself. And I think that's one of the reasons an audience goes to a performance, is to feel changed and to feel something in their heart. And I think Sister Helen says this at events. She says, you know, music and drama together like this, they can take you to places of your heart that you didn't even know you had. And I think I go to a performance to feel changed, to feel touched, to feel moved, to feel inspired, to feel redeemed, to feel joy, but to feel. And so I don't shy away from it because I think that's what the art form can do so magically and on such a grand scale. And part of what draws me to a story is when the emotion is so big that it makes sense for people to sing it rather than just say it. And that it's so big that they'll not only sing it, but it will fill a 3,000-seat house. And then when people sing together, it can be just shattering. So I do it because I want to go there, and I want to bring people there too. I feel this ache or this joy or this transformation, and I feel like this vibration is so strong, we have to get this out there somehow.
Well, you certainly make us have those deep feelings. It's absolutely true. I wanted to open up to a couple of questions from the audience. We have a microphone, and the reason we use a microphone is so that people on the live stream can hear the question. Questions from the audience?
They all know everything.
Stunned. Stand up, please, and tell us who you are.
Sure. My name is David Ostwald, and I have a question that has to do with, it's a stage director, composer question. Mm-hmm. In Dead Man Walking, in the prelude, where we see the flashback, there are a lot of stage directions, and there are chunks of music. Mm-hmm. And there are a couple of places where, for sure, the music has to go at a particular, the action has to go to a particular place. So when the radio turns off, it has to go there. It can't go anyplace else. Mm-hmm. But in the section where the rape and the shot and the knife happen, it doesn't seem to me as musically definite that they have to happen in a particular place. Am I not hearing something? did you have a particular place in mind for those three events? It's also interesting. It seems to me that the time after they're struggling and the time of the rape is quite long. And how did you envision that? How did you decide how long that needed to be?
Here's a man who knows your opera.
I appreciate that you know that opera. I go by my instinct again, and then we workshop it and we see it produced and we decide that works, that length works, and that's the right timing for that section. I am very specific in my mind when I do something, but that's because I can only write when it's very specific and clear to me. The more specific and clear it is to me, the broader it can be. I tell singers this too. You have to be very specific about what you're saying and what you're singing. And the more specific you are, the broader it can be, because then there's clarity and people then can create their own scenario. But I do have specific places in mind, but I like also to give freedom to directors to discover those places on their own too. Now, as you said, there are certain places where an event just is going to happen. A radio turns on, someone's got to turn it on, you know? It doesn't just magically turn on by itself. So yes, that cue is right there. And then I do have violent music there, but a director can decide, is that something that's happening in the murderer's head? Is that something that's echoing through time? Or is that a specific cue for when that action happens? I like to give directors freedom to discover as much as I appreciate freedom to discover. And I also like to give singers freedom to discover. The thing that's scary, of course, in opera, that's different from any other art form, is the composer is telling you what is happening, every single person involved, every second of every moment of that score. That is kind of a daunting thing when you think about it, that you're on that score, every single second is mapped up. This is what you're doing, this is what you're doing, this is your dynamic, this is your note, and putting stage directions in there. But within that context, I like to create a sense of freedom so that singers can explore, a director can explore, a designer can explore. And I think that's very important. So your answer is, the answer to your question is, I go from my gut and my instinct, plus collaborating with the director on timing and spacing for the original production. And once we decide that that's what we want, then we have to set it at some point. And then other directors can take it in a different direction. Yeah.
One more question here in the center.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Linda.
Hi, Linda.
I'm currently a vocal performance student, and I have a question. Going to school, it can be very confusing, like what you want to do even musically. So what would you say to someone who's interested in both performance and composition?
Well, what would I say to someone who's interested in both performance and composition? You have to follow your heart and your gut. I was a pianist primarily when I went to college at UCLA. I wrote music, I wrote a lot of songs. I thought I was going to be a Broadway composer at that point. I didn't really know anything about opera. I knew about classical piano, but I didn't know about classical singing until my late teens. And so I was still very much interested in pursuing a career as a pianist. And little by little, as I pursued that, I realized I think I have more to say as a composer than I did as a pianist. And also, I didn't have the stamina to be a pianist, a solo instrumentalist. You know, I admire musicians, singers, pianists, violinists, solo artists who go out there and take on the world. That is a hard life, right? It is not easy. And then they say to me, but what you do isn't easy either. No, it's not, but it's really where my passion lies. I still play concerts every now and then, and I love it, and I get to play for wonderful people and make music, and occasionally I hit the right notes, but mostly I stay in my studio and write, because that's where my real passion and where my life took me. And I think it's just, you have to find it yourself. There's no clear answer, but you can do both, and a lot of people do both. But it's, you know, are you a singer? Yeah. Maintaining a singing career is a full-time job. It really is. Now, there have been some singers that are, Joan LaBarbera is a singer and composer. There are a few people who make a career singing and writing, and they find a niche for themselves. But an itch and a niche for themselves. See, I'm a model. So I just say you have to find it on your own. There's no clear path. I didn't know the path to becoming an opera composer would be to lose the use of my hand for a while and then get a job at the PR marketing department at San Francisco Opera. I had no idea. You know, that story still stuns even me, that could happen, and that now I have this life writing operas. I mean, I never thought that would happen. So You really just have to find a place where you're passionate, joyful, and you're living your life, and you're surrounded by people who love you for who you are, not what you do, and where you feel like you're contributing and you're working with people that you enjoy. You know, it's very important to have all of those things. And if that leads you into performance more than composition, that doesn't mean you have to stop composing. It just means you have a different emphasis. You know? But it's really something you have to find.
Life lesson in those words. As Jake said, there's going to be an extra little encore
Yes.
for the audience here in the Opera Center. So to our live stream audience, I want to say thank you for being with us. We'll look forward to seeing you again for another event that's coming up very soon. And I think still, though, we can sign off from the live stream with a round of applause for Jake and for the wonderful audience. Are we clear? Good. We are clear.
Okay, we're clear. Okay, so are you going to do like a we have. Oh,
It will-
okay.